It's just the stats. Reggie Johnson, Eugene Morgan coming to you from the lovely city of Atlanta. And Eugene, the day I dreaded to talk about as an Alabama fan has arrived.
Yep.
And I did not want to have this conversation. This early in the game, I mean, we watched Bryce last year. And of course, he wasn't passing the eye test. And when you have CJ Stroud breaking records over there, it just doesn't look good. It exacerbates the situation there. But I didn't think we'd get to the second game in the season, 2 games into his sophomore season, and he'd already be hitting the bench, as it has been reported in Carolina for the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. And as much as I hate the decision, man, and you sent me a Mel Kiper tweet where he hates the decision as well, kind of crapping on the Panthers there.
Yeah,
and I do believe there's some culpability the Panthers have, but I don't know where the most culpability is, because when I'm listening to, for all of the people who talk about Bryce Young in glowing fashion, kind of stick up for him in certain ways here and there, I feel like he has kind of made his bed to a certain degree. Like the stats just are not good. They're not good. They're not good. They're in no stretch. There's no way I can look here and say, well, maybe if this had happened or maybe if that had happened. The stats just aren't good. I don't know if you can once a young quarterback has been benched, I don't know if he can resurface on that same team.
Yeah.
And still be the player you thought he was going to be. Who do you think deserves the most blame here?
I kind of believe what Mel was saying, because when you have a young quarterback, I feel like young quarterbacks and older quarterbacks are kind of like the same, right? So the first thing you should always address with a young and old quarterback is you have to have an offensive line. You've got to give those guys time. I mean, I know we're not going to talk about it, but look at Caleb Williams. He's getting killed out there because his offensive line is horrible.
Very true.
So I just think, I know he doesn't have the weapons, but at least give him the protection to see what we've always seen in Alabama. Because one thing I've always loved the one thing that always scared me about Bryce is his poise. And I just don't think we've had that moment to see him shine in his poise in the league. So I think that's where I get upset, because I was always scared of Bryce Young. As a Georgia fan, I was scared of him. And I remember in the championship game, and it was like, oh, we're up by 8 with I think it was most close to 2 minutes left, and Bryce Young has the ball. Like, those moments scare me when he was a college quarterback. I just think it's there. I just think you got to give him something. You got to at least build around him. I mean, look at your team. Look at the Steelers. I know it's a small sample size, but look at Justin Fields. Look, it's like they're playing to his strengths. And look, they're saying, don't turn the ball over. Let our defense play, and we'll win the ball game for you. Just play simple. And I think that's where they haven't let Bryce, they haven't let him be able to get to that point, right? To be able to, get to those moments. Like, okay, build that confidence with each other.
Yeah, and I kind of agree there. And when I was looking on PFF, and this may be surprising to you, because I was looking on PFF and I'm trying to figure out where their line ranks. How bad is Carolina's offensive line? Because I was having this conversation with somebody today that was very passionate about Bryce being benched, and they were upset. They were saying kind of the same things. Man, this offensive line is horrible, but you may be. Where do you think Carolina's offensive line is ranked from which you have seen so far?
I mean, if I'm looking at it, I would say bottom of the league, but I feel like you're gonna tell me a different story here. So I want to know what's the real, where's the PFF rank on them?
Okay, the PFF rank for Carolina, and this is not good news for Bryce, is 20th. And it's funny because in the particular conversation that I was having with this individual, we were also discussing they were mad that Bryce didn't go to Houston. They were like, why couldn't he go to Houston, where everything would have been so much better for him there? Well, Houston's offensive line is ranked 22nd. They're ranked worse than Carolina's offensive line.
Okay.
Bengals rank worse. Even the 49ers so far aren't ranked great on the offensive line. They're not doing great here. So I'm thinking for all of the things, for all of the reasons we may give for Bryce not to be doing well, and I wish there was more of them like that were legitimate reasons, because I believe there are some.
Yeah.
I think that if when you're a pretty good quarterback, you get over these things. You kind of survive them. If you're a good quarterback, you might look back and say, "Man, that person had a terrible offensive line. It's a miracle they did anything." But a lot of times they did something. We look at Bryce here. It's hard to imagine any quarterback, even the one I like. Let's look at Bryce over the first 2 games here. 245 yards. That's 2 complete games. 2 complete games. 245 yards. 0 touchdowns. 3 interceptions. A 9.1 on the QBR. These numbers won't even get you a backup job in the NFL. I don't even know if you can get a backup job with stats like this. So if, as much as I want to believe that this is malpractice on this side of the franchise, which I do kind of believe to a certain degree, because Carolina just hasn't earned the benefit of the doubt the last few years here with some of the decision making that's been going on there. I can't knock them all the way. I might say maybe 60-40, because I'm usually more on the player. I believe great players can transcend bad franchises. I've seen a lot of great players still be great players for franchises that aren't that great. And with Bryce, do you think he would have done better if he had gone to a different team?
I don't know.
Maybe he goes to the Shanahan or McDaniels or somebody down there in Miami.
I would like to have him have that chance, before I give him the full assessment, because the first issue was his first head coach didn't want to draft him, right? He wanted to draft a guy from Houston. So it's like how, and it's like, and then we look at, I know I'm not going to talk about Tua, but his head coach didn't want him either. And it's like, you see the change in head coach, you see how the protection changed. I don't know. It's like, and the head coach they hired doesn't really match his strengths. So I don't know. He's just in a really, here's the thing. He's in a bad situation. He's probably with let's just face it. He's the ownership right now was the worst ownership right now in the league. Right. So how is he supposed to, compete?
Looking at his stats from last year, he played 16 games, man, but he only managed 2,800 yards. He had 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's just not going to do it.
No,
it's not going to do it, man. It's not going to do it. I love you, Bryce, but those numbers aren't going to do it for you. And I feel like maybe, if you're trying to salvage the season, I kind of see why you make the move, but it does seem like, because they were trying to make this seem like it's a temporary sitting in Carolina. Like, hey, we're just going to sit them down, let them kind of evaluate things, sit behind the red rifle. Hopefully things change. But Eugene, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like you could sit a new quarterback and have him come back at minus? So here's the best case scenario, and this is unfortunate for Andy Dalton, not something I'm wishing for. But the best case scenario is Andy Dalton comes in, Andy Dalton gets injured or something, has to come out. Bryce comes back in and has command of the game and looks like the guy that you drafted. That's the best case scenario, right? Because you can't just reinsert him. If Andy's playing well, you're not going to put him back in the game. It's up to him now to go back and have a Geno Smith type resurgence,
Right, exactly. And that's the thing is like, and will he even get that chance? And that's the thing. And maybe he gets to sit behind and watch a little bit, maybe what he's been missing. And maybe Andy can show him, hey, look, yes, you don't have the best line. You don't have the best receivers or running back or anything right now. But let me show you how at least hit some guys to like get some movement on your ball, right? Get some forward progress. And I think that's the thing we're kind of missing is like, I just want to see something from him. I just want to see something from him from Alabama. Just a little glimpse. And that's
a little bit of what you saw there as that great player there in Alabama, right?
Right. Because I think we were fearful that Tua wouldn't show us, but he showed us last year. It's like, here it is. And then when Jalen came in, it took a minute, obviously, but then we saw Jalen. I think that's the one piece I'm missing from him. It's like I just want to see that the poise and where he kind of scared you. You were. I referenced this ad nauseum. The LSU game with him and Burrow, and that was just such an amazing game. Like he played with just.
Does he need a stacked team around him, you think, man? Does he? Because those Alabama teams and those college teams, you can really stack those teams to where you're playing with a bunch of guys that are going to be playing on Sunday, and the other team you're playing has a few guys that may be playing on Sunday.
I mean,
so you can overpower them by just stacking your team. So, in that way, maybe he needs to go to a stacked team and just be the last piece. I don't know.
Right. And just maybe that's it. Here's the thing. There's no knock on that. There's two guys in the league right now that can play and go you can throw Mahomes, you can throw Allen. Those two guys are in any situation. And they're gonna good, just give me a bunch of dudes. I'm gonna throw it to them. Right. And they're gonna make it happen.
Right.
And maybe that's not a knock on Bryce, but maybe that's where maybe that's the situation he has to get into. Unfortunately, it's not gonna happen this year where he's at right now.
Very true, man. And you talked about him, so let's go ahead and talk about him here. Let's talk a little bit about Tua and where it will be going. This is something I did not want to see, man. And this is not just from a former Bama guy. We just moved from one Bama guy to another. This is just from a human being standpoint. You don't want to see a guy who's had previous issues in the concussion department have the same issues, because from what you hear, every subsequent concussion is worse than the preceding percussion. So from what I've heard, Tua's not going anywhere. Said he doesn't want to retire. What are your thoughts, and should he retire or not?
I'm just worried. I mean, I know technically, right? It's 3 concussions in the last 2 years, but we can all pretty much say it was 4, right? That one concussion was not a back injury. We know it wasn't a back injury, but whatever. They can call it what it is. But I'm just worried because, good thing he's on the IR, and so he's going to get a bunch of opinions, medical opinions, good opinions, right? Not media, not us, but I'm just concerned. Because when I saw that hit, it didn't look like a bad hit. It
didn't look crazy, right?
It didn't look crazy.
It's wild. You've seen a lot of harder hits than that, and it's wild. And what was crazy, the irony of that happening, hitting DeMar Hamlin is crazy. By the way, it's crazy. You hit a guy who had a serious injury just about a year ago. I'm not even sure if it's been a full year calendar-wise. I think it was towards the end of the season last year for DeMar Hamlin, and you have a serious injury yourself. Isn't that crazy? It's wild, man.
Yeah.
I don't know who would have had that in a bingo card for this year.
Right. And Darren would be like one of the guys who knocks out, one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm just concerned. I know he doesn't want to retire, and I respect that. I respect he wants to play, and I always loved his toughness. I've always respected his toughness and Hurts and Bryce, but I'm just concerned. I don't want him to just don't want him to get hurt. Long term, that's where you're just worried about him.
Yeah, I agree, because he's a young guy. He has the rest of his life ahead of him. You don't really want to be impaired physically in any serious way, with CTE or other issues like that.
Right.
That can compound or that can make things worse for you later on in life for a lot longer time than what you play football. So it'd be hard, but I understand at the same time, if you're a guy that spent his whole life working up to this point, you go through Pop Warner, you play football through your youth, through high school, you go through college, playing at the highest level there, you finally make it to the NFL, you playing at the highest level there, you get a decent contract, you're playing. To say just never mind and go home is difficult.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to do,
Yeah, and to be in that the former regime who didn't have any confidence in him, And that's also, that's gotta affect him mentally as well, right? And then he has a new coach that just turns it all around for him and say, hey, we're gonna play to your strengths. We know you're not a good pocket quarterback. So we're gonna get the ball quicker out of your hands, and we're gonna do these things to make it easier on you. And it was crazy how night and day, and it was just a fun season for him last year, right? We all loved it. We all loved it. Oh, look, we all knew this is what he could do, and it's just obviously I want him to play. You're right. We don't care for Alabama or wherever. If you're an SEC guy, we love you when you get in the league, and we're gonna ride or die for you until you get until you retire or whatever happens to you. But that's just my fear for him. I just the 4 concussions over 2 years. That just scares me for him personally.
Yeah, I agree. If you're the Dolphins, how do you slow walk this? If you're the NFL, do you even allow him to come back? If you're the NFL, do you say, "Hey, this is going to be a massive black eye on us if we just keep running this guy out there, and he keeps getting carted off the field in one way or another. It just doesn't make us look good as a whole." If you're the NFL, do you press the Dolphins to keep him on the bench longer, or if you're the Dolphins, you just kind of do it on your own?
I think the league is never going to step in. So the good part of it is like he's on the IR. So I looked at the schedule. So right, so he has the next 3 games, and then they have a bye. So he essentially has 5 weeks before he can come back. So hopefully he's got good people in his camp, and good, just doctors that are going to tell him the truth. Like, look, this is going to keep happening, or you know, or maybe he has to like do the guardian cap. And again, there's no shame in that, guys. If I'm
Are they
when I see
wearing
guys
that
wearing
during the game? I don't know if I've seen any.
there's
How many guardian caps have
there's
you
a
seen during the game?
few there's a few. There hasn't been a lot. I think it's one of those things. Maybe you'll see more of that, but man, if they can
You
talk
should
him
if
into something
necessary,
like
right? Why not?
right. I think that's one of those things like, hey, we do it. We love you, dude, but you got to wear this if you're gonna, especially if you're gonna run. I mean, it's a different thing. And that's the one thing when I was watching Kyler Murray the other day, it's like, oh, I think Kyler's figured it out. Like Kyler would like just run and just dive. He did like the whole baseball slide like Russell Wilson used to do. It's like, oh, finally. It's like just do that, man. Just do the baseball slide and live another day. Like if someone can teach him that, and then don't lead with your head, lead with the legs. I think that's such a better move. And maybe talk to him during this time off, and hopefully they can work on that with him.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how quick he came out and said that he wasn't retiring. I did kind of read into that because he came out pretty quick with that.
It was
A
pretty
lot of
fast.
people were throwing it out there like maybe you should, especially after how the game ended. A lot of people were maybe you should hang it up. Maybe it's that time. And he
Yeah.
doesn't seem to want to hang it up. And I mean, I guess if you're a Dolphins fan, that's got to be encouraging that the guy is not wanting to hang it up. He's wanting to go out there and give it another go. That means that he must feel like he can for one, right? That's one thing that you feel like you can give it another go. At some point, are you trying to save a player from himself, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. At some point, someone's got, I know that's a lot of money, but I know, gosh, I'm just concerned for him. Like I've seen that. We've just seen the stiff, like the fencing art from him just too many times. We're like, oh, when it happened again, it's like, oh my gosh, here he goes again. And it's like, and that's the thing, like you said, like you hit the nail on the head. It didn't even look like a hard hit. That's the thing. It's like if it was just like it hit, like he hit into his forearm from what the tackle looked like. Yeah, I just really, I've always respected it. I always liked the guy. I just don't want to see just a bad thing happen to him.
Yeah, I think we all share that in hoping that he does have a speedy recovery and that there's no long lasting damage here. I will say that if he comes back out again and it happens again,
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna be out. A life is more important than football. Even though
Yeah.
I understand how you pretty much poured your life into it. So a lot of people,
Mhm.
I understand that if you're the football player, it's easy for a lot of people to tell you to stop because they didn't put their whole life into it the way
Yeah,
that you had. So it's
exactly.
easy for them
It's
to
easy
say,
for
hey
you and
man,
I
let's
to
go
say
sit
that.
down.
To sit down. Right, exactly.
But with
Mhm.
you're like, hell no, I spent my whole life getting to this point. I'm here now. And there's no way in hell I'm gonna go sit down now. But sometimes you gotta do what's the best for the player, even though the player may be really gung-ho and ready to play. In transitioning here to our Falcons, now what's great about this game, and the biggest thing about this game was this is what we pay you for, Kirk. This is why we gave you the money. We gave you the money because you can keep us in games like this, so that you can keep us in games like this. I remember texting you when we were down about 7 points and we're saying, hey, this is it. This is why and he doesn't necessarily have to win the game, but at least go out there and make us look respectable. We're paying
Yes.
you about $50 million a year. Go make it look respectable. I don't care what's going on, right? Because when you pay guys this amount of money, do we care how or why they're not getting their numbers? We don't. You
No.
give them X amount of dollars, you expect to see these numbers for the dollars you pay. You can't complain about the offensive line. You can't complain about your wide receivers. This amount of money means that there's expectations. And I think he met those expectations, not necessarily from a number standpoint, but from a going out there and having Kirk get the ball with that
Yeah.
time running down and the feeling that we had a shot returning. That's the feeling that got returned to me when we didn't have Matt
Yes.
Ryan, I had that feeling. When we had Matty Ice, I had the feeling that when we could give our quarterback the ball with 2 minutes left, and he can possibly go win this game for us. And now when we had Ritter, as much as I wanted to give Ritter a chance and a decent sample size, he would show glimpses, but there was never that faith that he was going to march us down the field and win the game. Maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. I don't know. But that feeling returned yesterday with us getting the ball to a guy like Kirk and saying, well, he at least has the ability to do it. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I mean, I just want him to throw it, right? I just don't. It's like I don't
I
care.
still want to see more of that, man.
I still want to see more of that. I mean, there was like I don't remember what quarter it was, but there's like 3 open guys in the end zone, and he just threw it back in the end zone. It's like if there's a time to just force a ball and get picked off, it's the end zone. Like I'm not getting mad at that. That's the time I'm not gonna get mad at you. If you just gonna hum it in there and give a guy a one-on-one chance, like you're Drake London, he's our number 1 guy, right?
That
Give him a
route that
chance.
Drake ran, by the way, at the end was freaking amazing.
Was
That route was a thing of beauty,
fantastic.
man. He did Slay Jr. is an amazingly great player, by the way.
Yeah,
He did
even Slay came up and
Darius
said, "Hey,
Slay
great
like
route."
that. That
Yeah,
was
Slay came up and
amazingly
said,
great.
"Yeah." I'm hoping that is like, and maybe it's just getting to a new system, new offense, and I'm hoping he just slings it. I'm not gonna like. That's one thing. If you're gonna sling it and you're gonna sling it 80 yards and it get intercepted or 50 yards, and it's gonna be on the opposite side of on the other team's side, go for it. I'd rather see that than 5-yard, 10-yard interceptions and are on our own side of the field, and that's I'm hoping he gets that confidence. That's the confidence I'm hoping it instills him, because let's just say we know we got lucky because Saquon catches that ball, the game's over with. We all know
Correct.
this.
And I'm
Right.
surprised
But
of all the times they went for it on fourth, for them not to go for it on fourth there was so
why would you
shocking to me.
right? And why would you throw
Shocking.
the ball on 4th down? Just run it. Run the ball.
I think you run
Yeah.
it and then you run it again. So you run it knowing
Yes.
full and well that you're going to run it. What was that on? No, that was on fourth. Actually, I'm sorry.
That wasn't
That
on
was on.
4th, but
No,
still.
that was on third. That was on
That was
third
on your third because they kicked the field goal.
they kicked the field goal. You're right. They kicked the field
Right.
goal. So that means you run it, and if you know that you're going to get it close again, you run it. You know that it's 2 down,
Right.
4 down territory there. You run it and run it
Exactly.
again. And I feel like they can no way in the world. We haven't stopped you up to that point. There's no way in the world. I think it was like 3-4 yards, maybe. I'm not sure. It wasn't 10. So I know that he probably could have ran it a couple times and got it in there. So that
Right.
they decided to pass
get that
it,
1
and that
yard
Saquon dropped it. Oh,
right.
man.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm hoping for me, just with him, is like that's the Kirk Cousins we've been wanting. Just sling it. Just sling it and see what happens.
Sling it,
And
man.
that was
Absolutely.
yeah. because we're not
What do
going
you
to
think
match you.
about
Like,
our defense? What do you think about the defense out there, Eugene? Looking pretty good, huh? Like we
looking really good. I
defense
mean,
keeping us in the game, man. I mean,
yeah,
not to say they didn't hold them to like 5 or 10, but it's still the Eagles. It's still Jalen Hurts, not easy to do. And at the same
right.
time, they kept us in the game, and that ended up proving the difference at the end here. One of the things,
Right. I mean, you saw our cornerbacks like were just all. I mean, our corners were on everything. I mean, I'm still hoping we get a little more of a pass rush going on here, but I mean, corners,
Yeah,
safeties
he
are
had
just
all day at a few
killing
of those times, man. He had coffee
it.
back there. He's ordering
He
Uber, man.
really,
He was sitting back there for a minute on a few of those. And I don't know if that was by design, as to try to keep him in front of you, so you didn't necessarily want to rush and miss and have him take off. Like I
yeah,
don't know, because some of that, see, he had on some of those plays such an extended amount of time that it made me feel like it was on purpose at certain times. Because I'm like, he has so much time. You have a corner that'll finally rush him that has to come back from upfield, and he'll probably come back down and rush the guy eventually. But it didn't seem
yeah,
like they were trying on those front to get to him until the end of the game. The end of the game, they were humming. Don't get me wrong, they were trying them then. But
yeah.
I'm with you there. But Matthew Judon, man, what a big difference, man. What a big difference even a remotely decent pass rush can do for your defense, right?
It's yeah. I mean, it's just been fun. I mean, it's just this. I mean, if even against the Pittsburgh game, I mean, they did not get what they only get field goals to them. And to just hold this team and yeah, I mean, you've got to be happy with this defense. They're doing exactly what you would want them to do. We just need the offense. This is where it's like, okay, look, they're holding this team to this many points. You guys have got to step it up. And I love that the one series where they just handed it off to Bijan the whole time. It's like, oh, it's a Bijan. It was a Bijan series the whole time. So I mean, it's great, but we still Kurt has got he's got to just sling it. He's got to put some trust in his guys, and just throw it out there and
Let's see
see
if
if
we
they
can get a
catch the ball.
feel for how many. Let's look at Kirk here. 20 for 29 for 241 for Kirk. It's not too bad, right?
No,
He threw it about 30 times there. I'm interested to see. I would love to see a quarter breakdown to see how that came.
well, a lot of it was that last drive. I mean, that last
Yeah,
drive was
because it seemed like those first few quarters, it just seems like we weren't aggressively trying to move the ball down the
no,
field super aggressively those first that first quarter or so. And I just don't like the frequency of the hand. I don't like the Bijan centricity. And believe me, I have Bijan on one of my fantasy teams. I handing it to him 100 times, okay, but I don't know how good that is for an actual football team to seem that predictable, because at one point
yeah,
it just seems like we're either going to hand it to Bijan or pass it to Bijan.
yeah,
And Drake and Kyle were getting no burn. They were getting no targets at that point. So
no,
I was thinking that, man, maybe Kurt's hurt. He's not going downfield. What's still going on? Is this a continuation of the first game? But then he kind of
uh-huh.
came in, and you start to see a couple of passes go downfield. Mooney was catching some passes.
That was
So, and then
yeah,
Ray McLeod looking like Justin Jefferson for us at one point. He's getting a lot of action out there, and I didn't think Ray would be getting any action. But at the end of the day, our stars did show up and deliver. And I'm hoping that this is something that we can kind of grow on. I really hope it is, because as much as I like Bijan and I want to hand the ball off, and one of the reasons I wanted Arthur Smith gone last year, I just cannot imagine you paying $100 million for a quarterback for 2 years, a 2-year span of $100 million, and that
mm-mm.
guy's not spending it. He's not out
Right,
there spending it, man. You need
no,
to. This guy should be out there giving you 4,000 in his sleep, right? He needs to give you $50 million. Means that the guy needs to give you 4,000 yards in his sleep out there. He needs to
yes,
be casually giving you 4,000 yards on this 17-game schedule.
absolutely, absolutely,
Um, so that's what the expectation is, right? Not that I like Bijan as much as anybody else, but I don't want to see 2 to 3 series of like Bijan handoffs, and we're paying this guy all this money.
right. Especially when you've got when you have 5 or 6 straight runs, run the play action because Kurt is great at the play action, right? So
Right.
let's run that. run that. So again,
I
I'm
think they
hoping,
both
like you
strengthen
said,
each other, right? Like if you can
yep,
pass, you're gonna strengthen the run. If you can run, you can strengthen the pass.
hmm
And what was that
absolutely.
that last thing you were gonna say, Eugene?
No, I'm just saying let's just run the play action, So just keep doing that. That's what I was gonna say.
Do you have any final thoughts on maybe the direction where we're kind of going? I feel pretty good. So if we can go a little bit step up from where we were last week, where are your final thoughts on that before we get out of here?
I love it. I was scared we are gonna be 0-3. And
You and me both,
I know we
man.
didn't get a chance to talk about this, but 0-2 teams, it's almost like a death sentence. It's not a death sentence, but
Uphill
almost a
battle.
death sentence to go to the playoffs. So let's just say we don't beat the Chiefs coming up this week. To be 1-2 and our schedule getting a lot more easier, I feel really good. I feel great how they played. I mean, I was like you. I think what you text me is like, man, I just hope we just hold them 30. Like you're like we like just that.
Yeah,
No,
man. It's
we
don't
just
to embarrass ourselves in prime time, man. We weren't getting any primetime games before Kirk. And now Kirk gets here. We got all these primetime games. I want to go out there and show up, show the world what
right.
they've been missing. Some of these teams don't get a chance to be seen by other parts of the country. So you got to perform when you're getting on that stage. And I think that not only did we show up, the NFC South showed up. We'll talk more about this probably on future shows as we go on to see if this kind of continues. But the NFC South has been showing up around the league here in the first couple weeks. So
Yep.
we were looked at as being the easiest division area, the most winnable division in football. We're the
Hmm.
easiest division to win, and we're out there stomping teams. So we'll see kind of if that continues for the NFC South. This is Just the Stats. Check us out, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. See you next time.